Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Living Lives. And today, it's going to be fun. But first, I want to tell you what I have in my diffuser. I picked Passion today, which is a blend. And you'll see why when you meet the guest that I have that I picked Passion, because she's got a passion for life and is a podcast host and has a lot of different really interesting topics. So we'll get into that. But my guest today is Kelly Mitchell. She's a published author, book reviewer, podcaster, blogger, serial entrepreneur, casual gamer, and rebel with the cause. She's a product of a disco bunny mom and a rocker biker dad from a small town in Nebraska and a survivor of extreme culture shock after moving to Las Vegas. She has a associates in paralegal studies and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with an emphasis on serial killers and sexual predators, but never entered either field. She started starting a collection of business specializing in HOA collections. For those who don't know, HOAs are homeowners associations, is infested with daily drama, corruption, and controversy. She loved it. So this should have been a reality show, she says. And writing is a slow bit of business. And when you have opinions on current events, which she's full of as a strong-willed woman, she turned to podcasting as the ideal medium to entertain others and get the loud madness out of her head and into the world. And if you do what you love, it's not a job, it's a dream. And here she is killing it. If you enjoy her work or don't, she's happy to field questions and debate topics. So today I'd like to welcome Kelly Mitchell. Welcome, Kelly. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's I've become as I was telling you earlier, I became a fan of your podcast. We found each other through a podcasting Facebook group looking for people to be on podcasts, and I was a guest on Kelly's podcast, which hasn't aired yet. So it's kind of funny. We recorded that one, but this one's live. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now.
Well, it's kind of confusing, and I really didn't know where I was going. I think COVID pretty much changed all of our lives to where we did a lot of soul searching, finding out who we are, and we're still kind of navigating that. And I love learning. I'm a forever learner, so I'm always going into things and diving into things. And, writing, it's slow. And I thought, well, why not pick up podcasting? Maybe I'll meet interesting people, do interesting things, so I started doing that. And then I fell in love with the human condition. And everybody's kind of telling me, you need a specialty, you need to narrow that down, you need to have a certain subject. And I thought, well, I'm kind of like a chili cook-off, and I'm kind of like better eaten with a spork, where you go around and you try like everything. And that's kind of my thing. It's helping people navigate this time, helping people discover who they are. And there's no better way to do that than actually diving in, talking to people, without judgment, without lecturing, and just explore every topic there is. And that is, I've decided, is my niche. It's everything.
which kind of dovetails with what I do, because my podcast, my live is Living Lives, but we talk about adventures and connection. And I've had various. If you look at your guest list, and you look at my guest list, they're both all over the board. So I always feel it's always an adventure and a connection of everything from meditation to drag queens to all sorts of things. And I noticed, just looking at your podcast list, you have things like, what is a badass bunny yip? Best stories start with hold my beer. BDSM, mindfulness, and sex with healthy benefits. And know thyself and nurture your passion. So as you can, they're all over the board. And I've listened to some of those. So I'm looking forward to listening to a couple of the other ones as I catch up on the older podcasts. But what's one of your favorite podcasts, do you think, so far?
This is awful, but
feel free to say.
I mean, you know that my specialty was in serial killers and sexual predators. And the reason why that is because I look at people and I'm like, how do you work? You know, I got to figure them out.
Yeah.
And I really love the topics that people would consider offensive or that people would consider uncomfortable.
Okay.
Because I think there needs to be some, in order to not only build tolerance, but embrace other subjects, I think you need to tackle them. And so that's kind of my thing is I'm ignorant in a lot of things. And so things that I'm curious about, I approach everything with curiosity, and I invite people on the show so I can understand, so I can appreciate, so I can take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and incorporate it into my life and what I'm doing. And I'm so much better for it. So I'm trying to get other people to open up and do that, which is why some of my favorite broadcasts are the ones exploring sensuality, sexuality, owning your power, you know, things like that, because it taps into, people just don't realize it taps into everything in your life. It really does. If you're able to own yourself and own what you want to explore without being so demure and afraid. And, you know, I mean, I'm not saying go paint it on neon on the strip, but I'm saying, you know, be comfortable with it. And so it's the uncomfortable that I like to delve into.
And a lot of those topics are really, people don't know about them, and they're just going by what their parents told them or what their church told them or what society has told them. And you don't get really what's happening in the communities, or, you know, or in the actual, you know, what's really going on for the person as they participate in activities like that. So it's you know, I'm, like I said, I'm looking forward to listening to some of these, because it's really gets the personal point of view so that you can really better understand what is happening and make a better judgment for yourself. And who knows, you might like it.
Right. I mean, these days we're all screaming for diversity, but then of course we have no tolerance for anything. And then we're all screaming, you know, for understanding, but then we don't want to understand. We're always holding the gun ready to fire back rather than actually listening to what people are saying. And that's what I'm trying to explore. I mean, there's, you know, it was funny the other week, I wanted to get, there was a cult follower that had survived a cult, and I was trying to pull her on my show because I thought it would be so interesting, but my topics were too taboo for a person that was in a cult. I'm like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Yeah, she didn't want to be associated with a lot of the things that I talk about. And so, you know, I tried empathy with that. I really did. It just wasn't coming across well. So
I can imagine.
Can't win them all, you know.
So I guess I won't be looking forward to watching that one, listening to that one then.
For another. So, and then another one I'm looking for is there's a new type of dominatrix that does psychology and hypnotism. And so she really kind of helps you break into yourself. The only problem is I'm not being able to find one that will actually speak with me for free, and I don't want to pay for a session. So that's another goal that I have, you know, for my podcast.
Well, actually, I might be able to help you find some people that might talk to you about that as well. So
awesome.
Chat to me afterwards. But so I'm excited, you know, and I thought it's interesting that, you know, you said we're screaming for diversity, yet we're intolerant.
Yeah.
And it's very evident to me in society now that these things are happening. And it's like, wait a second, you have this dichotomy. You want this, but you're not even trying to be open, because you're just trying to check a checkbox. So many people are just checking boxes. Oh, I'm diverse. I have a friend who's a person of color, and I have a friend who's Hispanic, and I'm, you know, open-minded, but really nobody's really looking at really what's different. And I like the fact that you explore what's different, and it's in a really good way. I've really enjoyed listening to your podcasts lately, and I'm looking forward to going through the rest of them. So I lost what I was going to say. Wow.
I have that effect on people.
You also, and one of the podcasts I was listening to this morning with Coach Thompson, you talked about forming the American Podcasters Association.
Yes, I was looking into that. And strangely, it's another one of those things where everybody believes that's a wonderful idea and a wonderful resource, but then nobody actually wants to participate, and it's, I don't know. It kind of all goes back to the Greek culture with me. I think the Greeks did everything right.
Okay.
Because the people that were able to contribute to society, they believed in the service learning. They believed in taking care of each other. They believed in everybody prospering, not just one or two, because it helps the entire nation. And they believed in collaboration and, the Socratic method, including conversations with a diverse population in order to progress certain things. And that's what I was trying to do. But since that's not going to work out, then I'll try to educate people more with my podcast and what I do.
Yeah, it's because you mentioned it in that, and I'm like, I hadn't seen that, so I wanted to make sure to ask you about it. I had a feeling that might have been what happened because, like you said, everybody thinks it's a great idea, but nobody wants to follow along. So
Yeah.
I know I've gotten inspired with looking for some different types of people to be guests for my show. And that's one of the reasons why particularly I wanted to have you on, because you do have that whole openness and breadth of learning. So I like the learning aspect of what you do and what you bring to your shows. And it's quite evident that you have an open mind if you listen to any of your podcasts. So it's exciting to actually have you sitting here. I can see you. I know this is a little bit different for you. You're usually, voice only, and we almost didn't get that today.
Oh, right.
We had some connection issues. That's why we start things a little bit early so that we can go live when we're supposed to.
I don't think most people realize that being open and being curious, it takes practice.
Yeah.
Because I was not always this way. I'm from the Midwest, very sheltered. And so the whole survival of culture shock thing, it was on more than, one level of they sell beer after 10. It was like a whole different thing. Because all I saw in the Midwest were Midwesterners and everybody was like-minded. And you didn't need, we're all wary of strangers. I moved to Las Vegas. I didn't drive the highway system for the first 3 years that I was here because I couldn't believe there was that many cars on the road and I couldn't trust it. I wouldn't go out after dark. I was scared to let my kids outside. It's just that it's that mentality that keeps you inward. So it took a lot of practice and a lot of time and a lot of speaking with other people and friends of people and working in order to build up this curiosity and feel comfortable about questioning others about it. And it's all about approach. I mean, really, you're not out to offend or anything. You say, hey, I'm ignorant. Can you educate me? And be comfortable with admitting that. But yeah, it takes practice. It's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah. And I hear you, New England, a lot of the culture around here is also sheltered. I'm from Connecticut, and it's, I'm near New York, but it's still, I went through 16 years of Catholic education, and in my little, Danbury's a larger town in the area, but it's still, it is still sheltered. So it's, I've had the opportunity though to travel a lot. And that's one thing that I always say to kids, like my neighbors, they said, oh, my daughter wants to go to Europe, but we're not sure we should let her go. I said, let her go. It's really important. The more their kids are exposed to different cultures and different peoples and different languages, the more they learn and can appreciate what's around them and what's happening in life.
Right. I absolutely agree.
And the more we challenge our boundaries, and it basically one of the tenets that I live by is when you stop learning, you die.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we learn and the more we challenge ourselves to learn about other topics that how do you know you're not going to be interested in it until you at least try it? I've been to retreats where they've said, try a no thank you portion. If you don't think you're going to like it, just try it. You can still say no thank you. But when we were growing up, my father was one that, you don't have to eat. If you don't like something, you don't have to eat it, but you have to try it before you can decide you don't like it.
Right. How can you make that decision with nothing?
Right. Although I probably could have made that decision with okra. But
the way that talks to you is that it's unsettling. So
I was in Japan with some friends, and they took me out to a bar, and they kept ordering this stuff that they thought I wasn't going to eat. So we went through the whole bar menu of all these weird different dishes, and I ate them all. So they were proud of me. But
kudos.
So you have a couple books too. Can you?
I do. The first one was really fun to write. It's called Tour of Insanity. And I never thought that it would be interesting to all of us walk around our house and we're like, why does this work this way? Why is this there? And I'm like, I got to find the fun in this. And so me and this other gamer that I met online started putting together this book, because basically in chat, he was like whining nonstop about certain things like garages, attics, things like that. I'm like, you know what? To shut you up, let's write a book. So we started doing that, and then it ended up being really fun for me. It was my first nonfiction, and history is kind of like on a sliding scale. Everything that's been invented, there's a history of it. So I started looking up the history of things and why things are the way they are. And then that's where I found the fun. So the book, you wouldn't think it was, it's packed full of information and good advice and things that should be changed, but it's also packed full of so much humor you would not expect it out of a home improvement book. The stories are just insane. I don't think I'm ever going to get over French balconies, like ever. The history on that is it was for royalty, so they wouldn't have to leave a party. They could just kind of go out on the balcony, squat, do their business, and then come back inside. And it was very enlightening and very educational. So I decided to keep with nonfiction. And the second book, I thought, what am I going to write about? And it's about education. It's called Clap If You Can Hear Me. I was actually just picked up by a publisher, so it's kind of being revamped right now. But it's all about the deficits in the education system from like kindergarten all the way through college and how expensive college is. And then I put in a lot of parental resources in there because, legislation moves slow. So we need something immediately. So in order for the parents to get involved, I went ahead and created a whole bunch of resources for them so they can use them now, and instead of waiting to change the legislation, but still participate in it.
That's really exciting, actually, that I'm glad you got picked up by a publisher.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's new.
That takes a lot of pressure off. I know some people who've self-published, and it's been hell for them. So
it's not easy.
Any other books on the horizon?
Yeah, in fact, several. Okay. I'm delving into sci-fi. I don't know if I like the true, or what could be true, end of the world kind of stuff. And for people that own cats, and I own 4, so we'll just put that full disclosure out there. There is a real thing that cats have, and they give it to mice, and it like takes away your fear of predators. So humans can get it. In fact, most of the planet probably has it, and it does alter your moods and things like that. So I'm writing this book where everybody has it, but it goes dormant in some, and only the people that are allergic to cats don't have it. So it's kind of like this end of the world, and they kind of take over this mind control. So I'm starting with that. And then I've got another called Social Currency that I'm working on, where money goes away. And the Black Mirror kind of did something like this, but I'm doing something a little bit different, where we all rely on each other for what's called applause points and encores and things like that. And that's how we pay for things. And it depends, what kind of home you can get, what kind of job you can get, if you can have kids, what kind of education you're going to get. So I'm kind of going down those roads with alternate realities.
Oh, cool. I'm a sci-fi buff myself. I like the fantasy and the uh, some some of the science fiction. And people ask, well, are you a Star Wars or a Star Trek? I think both.
Yeah. That's rare. That is rare.
It's rare, but I've seen them all. But one of my favorites, I'm sure you've seen it, is Battlestar Galactica, because I'm sorry, not Battlestar Galactica, Babylon 5, because it was a beautiful 5-year arc, and we knew it was going to be 5 years. Well, we hoped it was going to be 5 years. It got almost canceled a couple times, but I forget who wrote it, but he definitely had the whole story laid out the whole time. So I liked that, the fact that it was, the whole picture, and took us through epic journeys and in epic lives and things. So it was fun. So anything else that everybody should know about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm developing a couple of apps.
Okay.
One is to put a QR code on gravestones. And that way you can hear the voices of, people can record a biography or an epitaph.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll also show other locations on the graves, community service, if people want to come and clean up, the graveyard, set up a whole bunch of different things. Because I found out that there's like paranormal tours and everybody visits these old graveyards, and nobody knows the stories. There's like, well, this grave looks like this. Wow, we wish we would have known what happened. I thought we need to start like documenting that stuff,
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's like a living history kind of a thing.
Okay.
And I thought that would be cool to do. So I'm kind of setting up that app right now. And then I'm also designing a game, an educational game for kids. It's called Soul Catchers, where they go and catch historical figures and kind of walk in their shoes. And then, of course, I'm going to have the adult version where we get to go catch the serial killers and the mobsters and things like that by going to their grave sites and stuff. So, yeah, those are the only two other things that I'm working on.
Oh, that's all. That's just small.
Working on it.
The QR code on gravestones, actually, that sounds really interesting.
It's neat, right? I thought there's a lot of stuff we can do with that.
You're right. And, you always wonder when you get these tours of, like, I was at up in Salem, Massachusetts, and we weren't on a tour, but there was a tour group that was going by us, and you hear the tour guide, and you're wondering if that's the same story they give everybody, because it must get boring after a while. And, are they embellishing, and is it the same story I'll hear from the other tour guide? Because that always kind of makes me wonder. But with the QR codes, you're at least going to get the same story all the time, and all the information's out there. It's just a matter of getting it so that when you're at the grave, I think that's a fantastic. More power to you on that one.
Yeah.
To see how that
early development that I think it can really go places, and I think it's a great way to preserve history, and you get to hear it from the person that actually lived the life, which I think, well, except for all the graves out now, but we can definitely do something with that. But
I think you're actually going to have people record their own.
Yeah, I figured like I could record mine, my little life history or whatever.
Okay.
And for the graves that are already out there, maybe we can track down a loved one that knows something, people, we can research it, because like you said, the information is already out there.
Right.
And then just maybe cite our sources. But I was thinking that's something, that would be great. And also to educate people on the sustainability things, like I'm going to be a tree. And I know how haunted forests start, is by making people trees. But there's just so many things that you can do with the body. I mean, there's more people underground than there are on ground right now. Right. So we're going to have to start thinking about that with the chemicals in the soil and all that sort of stuff. It's time to talk some sustainability when it comes to what we do with our body after we leave it. So I wanted to kind of put some educational material in there as well.
Cool. That's exciting. Well, I want to thank you for joining my show today. This is your website about your podcast. And there's links to, I know if you go on the website, you can get links to Twitter and everything else from there. And I'm going to just ask if you just hang out a second in the green room. I will be with you in a second, and I'm going to just wrap up the show and talk about my next guest.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. So next week, I'm taking the week off. I'm going to be traveling, and I will be in a spot where connectivity is very spotty. So rather than trying to have a guest and have bad connectivity issues, I'm just going to take next week off. The following week, though, is going to be fun. My buddy Adam B. Shapiro is releasing a new album on Labor Day weekend. And he's going to come on the show and talk about the process he went through when he was creating the album and recording the album and the different people he worked with. So that's going to be very exciting. And please, if you found me on Facebook or if you found me on YouTube, go ahead and like my page or my channel so that you get notified of upcoming events. And also, I encourage you all to go out, make a connection, and live your best lives. Thanks, and have a fantastic afternoon.